Welcome to the Divorce Angel podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Summerton. Attention business owners, senior managers and executives. Your successful separation begins right now. We have the answers to the questions you did not even think to ask. Let's face it, you're already successful in your career and we're here to help expand your knowledge and limit your costs by designing a strategy for your divorce. We take all that business knowledge you've acquired and we put it to work. With proven strategies, systems and processes, we've saved our clients tens of thousands in legal fees and helped define their future. And now we're doing the unthinkable. We're revealing the secrets the lawyers have tried to hide and giving you our formula for 5 steps to a seamless divorce. We're changing the world one divorce at a time, so stay tuned. Hey there everyone and welcome back to this week's podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you today and I'm going to talk about something that, it's pretty close to my heart. I'm a big crier, actually a really big crier. I will cry at anything that is on TV that will evoke some form of emotional response for me. For years, I've been embarrassed by my tears. I've tried to hide them. I've tried every single trick and tactic there is to prevent crying, from watching one of my children in a play at school, having a conversation with someone that's had a really good outcome, watching someone else cry makes me cry, like the list goes on and on. But the interesting thing is, men in my life have never really cried. I remember my father. I can't even actually, to be honest, even when my mum and dad got divorced, I can't remember seeing my dad cry. All I can remember was his anger. He was never, from what I witnessed, was sad. He was only really angry by what had happened. The only time I've seen my dad cry was when his golden retriever, who became his best mate after my mum and dad's marriage ended, and he had this golden retriever, Jack, for probably 12 years. When Jack passed away, I remember meeting Dad at the vet's and the vet having to say that unfortunately Jack had to be put down, and my dad sitting on the floor holding his dog, crying his eyes out. That is really one of the memories I have of crying. When I think of my ex-husband, even when our children were born, I don't think he ever cried. I don't think he cried even when we broke up and we were negotiating and navigating our way through our separation. Like, he was a very kind and gentle man, but I never really saw him cry. Even when as I've explained, I'm quite emotional. Even when I cried, he would look at me and not cry. My current husband, Richard, who I've spoken about on many occasions, and I know you guys all know that I love him to pieces. He's a big, strong man. He has a strong job. He's been, a member of the Australian Armed Forces. He's a commercial diver. He's just a man's man. I have witnessed my husband cry, and it is one of the most sexiest things I have ever seen in a man. I love seeing him cry, and when I say that, I don't mean I want him to be upset and cry, but when he cries or gets tears in his eyes, it shows me that he is human. And I love, 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 love that about him. So I wanted to talk today about why it's so important for us to make friends with our tears. Because humans shed tears in a response to feeling emotional. And it's when we're emotional that it tells us that we're alive. Because if we've been dead inside for so long that we can't even shed a tear, it really shows how hard some people have become. And there's been some scientific research into crying and why some people cry and why some people don't cry, and actually the effects of people who don't cry. What does that mean? Does that mean that they really aren't socially connected to other people? Does it mean that they don't feel things like other people do. Because my eldest son, I learnt very early on, once we were hanging upside down on the monkey bars when he was 4 years old, and he was following me. I was up there doing it, and he thought he could do it too, and he fell, and he put his arm on the ground, and as he put his arm on the ground, his radius and ulna both snapped in half, and he had a compound fracture. Now, this little boy was 4 years old, and we were quite a way away from the park. I had to get his brother and sister into their pram whilst trying to also navigate him home, because we'd walk to the park, so I could get him to the hospital. Now, I was absolutely fearful. I could see his bones hanging out, but he never cried for a moment. And when we got to the hospital, to the emergency department, the doctors had to give me something to calm me down because I was so worried about him. But he was just there. It's just, oh, look at my arm. And years later, we've learnt that his level of pain is so much higher, or what he can take is so much higher than the normal person. So he's got to be careful, because sometimes he's had perforated eardrums and hasn't just got on with it, hasn't even realised. Some would say a little bit superhuman, but it can be a problem in those instances. But does he cry? Yes, he cries. He cries when he's emotional. Not when he's hurt, but when he's emotional. So what's the point of this podcast today? I want people to fully embrace the ability to cry, because tears are, and we're not brought up this way. You think about it, when we're children, we are told, oh, stop crying, don't be ridiculous. And maybe that's the story that we've been telling ourselves. Probably certainly the story that I've been telling myself. You know, I've tried all the tips and techniques that when I'm watching a show and I go, oh, here it comes, and I get embarrassed, and all of a sudden I've got these tears running down the side of my face and I'm bright red. And to be honest, I'm an ugly crier, but I've tried the tongue on the roof of my mouth. I've tried thinking of other things. I've tried to do it all, but now I just embrace it. If I'm going to cry, I'm going to cry. And that's what I love the most about people's emotions, when they really allow themselves to move into the emotion. It has benefits. And there's been quite a lot of research that when a person cries, there's a few different sorts of tears. But for instance, if you're crying because you're emotional, it means that your body is relieving some form of stress hormone. And scientists have found that those tears, compared to the ones from chopping onions, have a higher level of protein in them. And this is what's so amazing. So if you're in a position right now where you're sad or you're overwhelmed and you just feel like crying all the time, just do it. Because the crying is what is going to help you get through it. You know, tears trigger social bonding and human connection. And it could just be that's what you're wanting. You're wanting someone to give you a hug. You're wanting someone to tell you it's going to be okay. There's support out there. We humans, you know, we live in packs. We like knowing that someone has our back. And sometimes, which is physically or emotionally outside of our capabilities, is what makes us feel overwhelmed, helpless, vulnerable. And it's those tears and releasing that stress hormone that can sometimes just make us feel better. So researchers have found the benefits of crying can sometimes outweigh those signs of weakness, or what I spoke about at the start. My kids will tell you, oh, she's off again. They actually find it funny, the things that I can cry at. I suppose I've become very good at it, but because I'm emotional, that's why I'm good at my job too. Like, I just like seeing people succeed. I love having a happy cry because someone has done something they didn't think they were capable of. But I'm also prepared to have a cry when I'm feeling a little bit sad or something hasn't gone right. But crying has a smoothing effect. It can help regulate your emotions and calm you down. And it can reduce your stress. And that is what's most important. So when you hold it back, you're actually keeping inside of you really what your body wants to release. And when you get support from others because of the human interaction, tears can also reduce aggression. So in other words, when you're having an argument, for instance, with your ex and it's just got too much and you just think, I'm not getting anywhere, and all of a sudden, someone cries, whether it be you or them, what happens is the tears all of a sudden, they're just like a white flag. Like, let's just calm all this down. Let's stop the aggression. Let's regroup. So tears can be good just to be able to get you back on that same page. Scientists have also found that crying can help relieve pain, whether that be emotional or physical. But the chemicals in our tears, they can make you feel better, but they also have a physical effect and an emotional effect on pain because they release endorphins, and those endorphins just promote a sense of well-being. How many times have you had a cry or you've heard someone that said, oh my God, I've been really teary, but I felt so much better afterwards? That's because the endorphins are being released. And crying can help lift someone's spirits and it can make them feel better afterwards. It's like a rebirthing. I've just got that out of me and now I can pick myself up. I've got that's all gone. All that pressure is out of me and now I can just regroup and get on with it. And they're the feel-good chemicals that we get from crying. And just releasing the tears, release the toxicity, those chemicals that are making you feel all of the bad emotions, the hate, the anger, the aggression. You're able to get rid of all that. And that's a good thing, isn't it? I mean, ask yourself, is that a good thing? I think it is. Being able to cry also allows you to sleep because you get exhausted just from how you cry. So many people want to try and hide the real them. But if you need to just cry, you should. I've got a mate at the moment who has really come into his own. He used to pretend he was this big, strong man, and now he's finding that things are just happening after his relationship breakdown, that the only way he can get through it is by releasing the pressure, and that's the tears. And some guys might look at him and think, oh, he's just such a sook. But isn't it a good thing if he can just release that, get it all out of him, like wash it all away, and then tomorrow wake up and everything feels better, everything looks brighter. And that's the ability of being friends with your tears. So your takeaway today is don't hide them. If you need to cry, release them. Like there's chemicals in them. Your body is doing it for a reason. Allow yourself to really just feel the good chemicals from having a good, ugly, hot, painful cry. Just do it. Embrace it. And don't be surprised that if we do have a chat and you touch me emotionally, that you find I go quiet on the phone, it's normally because you've touched something in me and made me really, really be grateful that you're in my life. Okay, my darling friends, that's it for this week, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Divorce Angel podcast. Go behind the scenes of my business to learn the secrets no one else will share. Deep dive into the Divorce Angel process and listen to our most popular episodes over at tanyasummerton.com. If you love this episode of the podcast, do me a favour and head over to iTunes and subscribe and leave a review so we can reach more people and change more lives. That's all for now, and I'll catch up with you next week.